Peter, a very good evening to you. You're very well wrapped up, dear boy. The cold weather's not due to come for a day or two, but I see you're very well prepared.
Cold in my house.
Yeah. put another lump of fernicide on. Why not?
Well, I've got 4 pullovers. So...
Wonderful. Now that's the way to go. We'd all be a lot better for it, I can assure you. Yeah, we're getting too, we're all getting a little bit too soft.
Evening, Chairman. So we're just coming up to 7 now. We're live streaming on YouTube, so
okay.
You're welcome to take
Are we live now? Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the East Herts Licensing Committee. Do we have any apologies?
No, it looks like we've got a full cohort here, Chairman.
Full house. Excellent. Super. Chairman's announcements. I'll keep them brief. There are none. Moving swiftly on, declarations of interest. Do any of you have any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests that you would wish to share with us and, more importantly, the public at this stage? I can hear nothing, and Councillor Jones is mouthing no. So may I assume that's good across the piece? Yeah. Thank you. The minutes of the 11th of March on pages 7 to 16. Would you join me in agreeing that those are a true record, and at some stage in the future I will sign off to that effect?
Agreed. Just have a proposer and a seconder on that, please, Chairman.
Indeed. Jeff, would you like to propose, seeing as you're there in the mid-screen?
Yep, happy to propose.
Thank you. A seconder, please.
I'm happy to second.
Thank you. When Jeff Jones leaves this meeting, he's going off to deliver a box of milk tray. Likewise, but first, if I may, Will, I don't want to put you on the spot, so please don't push back if this is inappropriate. But those licensing subcommittee meetings have already been adopted at the subsequent licensing subcommittees,
right,
and probably by now by council. But just for the sake of good order, would somebody please second that we accept those minutes?
Sorry, Chairman, can I just interject there? Sorry. So
please.
for the licensing subcommittee, we just need to receive them, so no need for a proposer and a seconder. But can I
receive? Indeed. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Can I just double check that we had everyone happy with the previous minutes? Was that unanimous? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Okay, we are receiving that. Thank you, Will. Good point. Well done. You've earned your pay already. Right, Oliver, are you there?
Yes, Chairman, I am. Yes.
There you are. Goodness gracious me. Hello. Welcome.
Thank you.
I'm rather hoping that you're going to lead us into item 6.
It would be my pleasure, Chairman.
Well, we are indebted to you. So please fire away.
Chairman, members, on the 21st of July 2020, the DfT issued its long-awaited update of the best practice guidance, which was previously issued in 2010. It came in the form of statutory taxi and private hire vehicle standards, which, despite its title, covers matters relating to drivers and operators as well as vehicles. The guidance clearly states that, or the standards clearly state that DfT expects these recommendations to be implemented unless there is a compelling local reason not to. We are required to have regard to the standards when exercising our functions, and the importance of thoroughly considering them cannot be overstated. This is the start of that process. In the interest of transparency, we should publish our consideration of measures contained within the standards and the policy and delivery plans that stem from them. In the 10 years since the DfT issued the best practice guidance, East Herts has worked towards implementing policies that ensure we are doing our best to safeguard the public and promote the licensed trade. As such, much of what is required for consideration in the standards we have already delivered. Appendix A to the report highlights the paragraphs of the 40-page guidance that need to be considered, and where necessary, makes suggestions for solutions and changes to be made to comply with the standards. Annex B compares the DfT's recommended approach to convictions with East Herts' current suitability policy. These mirror each other very closely, including in the time periods involved. But officers have made 2 recommendations for amendments to Section 4, which relates to driving and traffic offences. The report is before members today to seek comments regarding the steps proposed in order to meet the requirements of the new DfT standards before a full public consultation is undertaken. The results of that consultation would be brought back before the licensing committee in March of 2021. Thank you, Chairman. I'll be happy to answer any questions about the report.
Again, yeah, okay, good. I open it up, ladies and gentlemen, to the floor. Any points of clarification initially that Oliver can assist us with? This is a well-trodden path of going out to consultation. Chris, I can see you there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got quite a number of points and questions. I was wondering if we have any history of sex offences being perpetrated by any taxi driver or private hire driver in the course of their duties, and if so, if we had any lessons learned from that. That's sort of mentioned in the document from DFT. In terms of whistleblowing, which I see we've got a policy for our staff, I was wondering if that's ever been extended or thought to be extended to employees of private hire, licensed private hire operators, so that they're aware of how they can whistleblow on drivers or staff members in the licensed operators office. Thirdly, if we can look at Appendix A, point 4.4.
Could you give us the page number, Chris?
Sorry, I haven't got the page number on.
I think it's in the area of page 67.
Look,
No,
it's in the appendix. Sorry, I'm looking at Appendix A, which should be page
62. Is that
or
right?
four of Appendix A. Yes, sorry. So the DFT is stating that what we mustn't do as a licensing authority is circumvent the DBS process.
Yeah.
The DBS decides what should be disclosed to a licensing authority. My understanding is that we ask the police to disclose everything of someone's criminal record. That strikes me as circumventing the DBS process, but I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong. That's how I see that, because the DBS is designed to decide what we should know. So if we're asking the drivers to go to the police or go to us and sign to say that we can look at all police records, surely we're looking at more stuff than the DBS is supposed to tell us. The final point would be in Appendix B. Sorry, I think that might be page 80, by the way.
Yeah.
So page 2, Appendix B. The possession of drugs invites a 10-year period without being licensed at East Herts. But the advice from, or the guidance from the new statutory guidance from the DFT would be 5 years, not 10 years. Would we need to have a justification to depart from those standards because we're being harsher than what is recommended? And on a personal note, I would say that we're talking about addicts here often when we're talking about possession of drugs. We're not talking about supply, and we're treating them more harshly than I think is necessary.
Okay, well, that's a comment, not a question, but it's appropriate. Due to those questions, I think I'm going to invite Oliver to comment at this point, and I'll come back to Marnie and Rosemary in a moment. So, Oliver, are you in a position?
I'm happy to try and run through. If I've misunderstood one of your questions, because there's 4, I'll come back to it. So your first question was, have we had any drivers that have committed sexual offences? Is that correct? Was that
yeah, during the course of their licence duties? I mean, we might well have a sex offender generally, of course, so it's certainly applying, I'd imagine. But in terms of actually, has that ever happened that we've found that someone's done that while they're driving?
We have previously revoked drivers' licences for sexual offences, yes, in the past. I couldn't detail exactly what they were or the numbers. I can give you that information after the meeting if you want, because it's all recorded, but I don't have that to hand.
I guess I was just wondering if we'd found that there was any gap in intelligence by that occurring, or whether that was just happened by chance. Were there any lessons learned by the fact that we had some sex offenders that were licensed at the time, or is it just, these things happen, of course?
I think our checks couldn't be any more stringent when they're first licensed or at renewal. The lessons learned from it is to have a very close relationship with the police, because the information with the notifiable occupation scheme going, to get the information at an early stage so that we can action it, because as you understand, we have a different evidential level to the police. So it may be that we take action and immediately revoke, which can be reversed if we're wrong, but it's always to err on the side of making sure the public are safe. So that's why we maintain that excellent relationship with the police, so that we hear about those things at the earliest possible stage.
If I could come in there, we have had several, as Oliver says, and one in particular, which we pursued to the bitter end, was again result of superb work, intelligence and synergies with the police force, where they came to us and said that on the balance of probabilities, they wouldn't get a conviction. The CPS would probably not back it. But we were not in a position to be hampered by the requirement of beyond reasonable doubt, because we worked to a different level of judgment. So we were able to pursue it, and we did pursue it quite vigorously. So I endorse entirely what Oliver has said there in response to that. The relationship to working with the police is vital, and Oliver and his colleagues are working extremely hard to ensure that that's the case, and there is that good relationship. Sorry, Oliver, over to you. You've got other points to pick up.
So the second question was whistleblowing, and whether we have a specific, whether we have a specific policy for operators and their staff. We do have a really good working relationship with most of our operators. We do get intelligence from the people that run the businesses that say, we've let a driver go, we've had a complaint. Part of the review of due to the DFT standards is going to be, we're going to review our operator conditions. So we're going to put something in there about reporting and how it should operate in practice, because it's very much that we have that relationship and they feel they can do it without it reflecting on them. But it'd be nice to formalise it a bit. If that's okay, I'll move on to the third one, which was 4.4 in the report.
Yes, please. Yep.
So I've now lost the page.
That was 62.
60.
And it was regard DBS and previous.
If we're circumventing the system,
yeah,
I think that we could justify the process that we have in place, in that we do go to the police, like the local police officers, and ask what they consider is relevant to be shared with us, which may be more than is on an enhanced DBS. But I do think that we would be able to justify that extra step, because it has highlighted significant issues that haven't gone on the DBS. And if I'm frank, an enhanced DBS, although there's a sort of structure for what goes on to that, it does on occasion, like the notifier occupation scheme used to be, depend on who is deciding what is relevant to go on a DBS. So lots of things that could be relevant to taxi driving may not seem that relevant to the person who's putting them on. So we've constantly lobbied for the enhanced DBS to be changed slightly so that more stuff goes on it. But I don't think we're circumventing, and we're not specifically doing which is what they're saying here is the subject access request. So I think on the grounds of public safety, we can justify asking the police.
Okay, and then on to page 80, around drugs. We previously have talked in terms of 10 years. The DFT recommendation is 5 years. Could I just ask a general question on the back of this? I hope Chris doesn't mind. Are the DFT suggestions, are they a target? Are they mandatory? Or can we exceed them where local conditions allow?
Yeah, we have to have regard to them. They expect them to be implemented unless there's reasons why, or you can justify it. The standards we currently have that are a bit tougher than theirs, they were subject to public consultation when we first looked at the suitability policy. They were considered by members at the time as appropriate. If members wish to revisit that, then officers would be happy to do it. But we have all the justification from when the suitability policy was first done and the consultation was done, that I think allows us to say we take a stronger stance on it.
Okay, Chris,
Sorry,
just for the record on that, I'm aware of one case some years ago, which would probably not have come to us under the DFT regulations or DFT recommendations, but they came to us under our own rather tougher ones. It was broadly a good outcome, I think, for both the individual concerned and the residents, but it certainly did need the scrutiny of a licensing subcommittee to arrive at a decision. So I'm not uncomfortable with that extension. I know of a particular case where it proved useful. But over to you. Quick supplementary before we move on to others.
So if I could just come back on that last point. We are changing the guidance, or proposing to change the guidance for the driving offences, which is different from what was agreed at committee previously. And we're not having to revisit through a committee in regards to that, because you're proposing that. And you're proposing that on the back of the DFT recommendation. So the DFT recommendation is changing another one of our guidelines, if you like, by saying 5 years rather than 10, but that isn't being shifted. But the ones that we need to make harsher are being shifted. So I'm just wondering why that is, to me, that's slightly contradictory. Incidentally, I agree with the driving offences being harsher. I think that was always a little bit too lax across licensing authorities.
Well, Oliver has suggested that if we want to revisit some of this, then we should. Oliver, do you want to come back in on that?
Yeah, just to say that the proposal in front of you is for consultation, so it will be considered by members fully once people have fed back on it. So if you don't feel the increase is justified at the end of the consultation, then it's for members to decide. So if you don't want the increase, or you want to shorten something, then it will be members' decision after the consultation.
Thank you.
Okay, Chris, can I ask that you capture your concerns yourself, so that we can move forward on that?
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm going to go.
Excuse me, can I just say I've come in as an observer? I don't know why.
Anna Mari.
Hi.
Can I go now to Rosemary?
I'm an observer. I'm not an observer, but I don't know why I've come in as it.
Okay. Can you? If it would be helpful, if you turn your camera off. Mari,
Okay.
if you wouldn't mind, thank you. Rosemary.
Well, Councillor Goldspink actually had her hand up before me. It's put it down. I don't know if Councillor Goldspink needs to go first.
I'm sure she won't mind.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was a mistake. My hand was left up. I was waiting on a minute, so I apologise.
You don't make mistakes. Goodness me, it was an oversight. Really,
Oversight.
Really an oversight.
Okay, I've got
a lucky one, because it frees Rosemary up too.
Yeah, I've got four things to mention just on this one, please. Oliver, do you still have your? I see you're working from a paper copy. Have you still got your documentation open around page 80 or so? I mean, shall I go back to earlier on?
Well, I've got my documentation open at page 80.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, page 82.
82.
On the third paragraph, it's coming back on the drug addicts again. If an individual has previously been an addict, I don't know. I'd like to know how you possibly evaluate whether someone's been an addict, and how you can prove someone's 5 years free of substance abuse. But the proposal only appears to deal with convicted people. So how are we going to deal with that addiction, please? Do you want to answer that question first, rather than doing a whole line of them?
It's quite a long answer, so yes, I'll go for that one first.
It's a long question.
So as with many of these things, when someone applies to us for a licence and at renewal, they're required by law to declare any relevant facts. So included in our suitability policy are these matters which are relevant facts. So we would expect an applicant to tell us either that they've been an addict, or it may come through any number of other sources. So it may be information from the police, it may be something that's passed to us anonymously and is investigated. But as a first instance, we would expect all applicants to declare any relevant matters. How we prove they're 5 year clear or not is there's a number of ways of doing it. Essentially, if they've been convicted of it and then they haven't been convicted for 5 years, that would show that that's the first step to showing they're clear. It's like with any other conviction, if they haven't committed any other offences that they've been caught for, the assumption has to be on the balance of probabilities that they haven't done anything wrong. as part of the suitability policy, which we're not proposing to change, so it isn't referenced in this, we can require people to go for testing at their own expense as part of the application process if we suspect, we have good reason to suspect they were an addict, and they may still be. So there are a variety of tests which give a variety of results for a variety of different substances. So it would depend on the intelligence at the time or what they had admitted to, would be my answer to that.
Thank you very much.
And sorry, we can consider non-conviction information as well. That's in the suitability policy. So they don't have to have a conviction. It's still considered relevant. So it's not necessarily just from a conviction. It's just the way this particular section that I've lifted out is worded.
Okay, thank you. Further down on that page, you're talking about the convictions and a conviction for handheld device. Are you considering other convictions? Because there are several very similar wording to cover different aspects of the same crime.
It's a very good point. Things change constantly with offences. So some of the things we deal with today, we didn't deal with before. The wording of the actual suitability policy has similar or like offences. So it doesn't just limit us to the ones we list. We've listed as many as we can, so it's clear to people who have those convictions. But any conviction of a similar type for a similar offence that isn't listed in the policy can still be considered.
Thank you. And then taking you back to page 76, please. Page 76, item 9.2. You've got the proposed pilot. How do officers feel about this?
For joint enforcement, so joint authorisation of officers.
Yeah.
Been working towards it with the Herts and Beds licensing group for quite a while. There's often many questions raised about if we're going to take enforcement action, who would pay for that? Because our fees are cost recovery based on our drivers. We get nothing for someone else's driver, obviously. So we're working on a proposal with St Albans at the moment for the pilot, and we've very carefully worded what officers will do. So what you'll have is you'll have the ability, the authority to talk to that driver, and he'll be committing an offence as far as St Albans are concerned if he disregards you or just drives off. So we'll be able to look at their drivers and their vehicles, but any enforcement action beyond that is passed back to the home authority. So the idea is we can do joint operations together, but if we're out, say, in Hertford on a Friday night and there's a St Albans taxi or any other taxi that we're authorised to look at, not saying St Albans taxis are dodging, but we could talk to that driver, show them our authorisation, and they would be required to answer our questions about what they were doing there. So we find it a very positive thing. We're really trying to work towards it.
Good,
yeah, I mean,
thank you.
This is a classic case, Rosemary, of us working towards the virtual unitary that we need to have in place, even if we don't get the real thing, so that we can, we can sew these things up across the piece. And I think a Saturday night in Hertford is a good example, because anybody that's been out late as night, as I often do, well, clearly, will notice that there's all manner of people arrive from goodness knows where
they do,
and try and pick up, as you've recognised.
Thank you.
There's
and
more.
my last one more question. Thank you. Page 77. It's actually an item 9.4. Can I just say though how impressed I am that the processes and procedures we've got in place, how good they are already, and that there's very little needs correcting. So thank you very much for having that all under hand. But item 9.4, you do say we do this, but it could be improved. Is it going to be improved? And if so, how, please?
It is. So we're working on this. It's something we've been working on for a while. So one of the first steps we're trying to do is design a more easily, I'd say, accessible plate on the vehicle. So it'll still be in the same position, but it has lots of information on it. What it needs is, it needs to just clearly say which authority it is and the number. So we're working on making that more easy, because I'm a bit of a taxi geek. So when I drive around, when I see someone else's taxi, I see how close I have to be before I can read the plate. So it's always really close, because everyone has either an H or a P starting, and there's a logo that you don't recognise and quite small. So we're working on a plate that clearly says East Herts and the number. So if someone has a problem with one of our vehicles, you can see it. Part of the DFT guidance is to put complaints details inside the vehicle. So we're doing that, and we're working on a way that can be seen from inside and outside the vehicle with the relevant details. And with the consultation we'll be carrying out, is we're getting together a list of consultees. So that will be lots of different users. So the care homes, all kinds of different users of the taxi service. And we're going to use that consultation as a way of promoting how to complain if something's not right. Generally, our drivers are of a great standard, but people do often come around the houses to complain to us. It'd be easier if they've got a more direct route. So we are doing that currently.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's it from me, Chair.
Thank you, Rosemary. Cogent questions. Thank you. They've taken the committee forward on that, I'm sure. Jeff, you're flagged up.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I think Rosemary touched on it. I just had a question, two questions. One of them around the handheld device issue. So page 82 going on to 83. My concern, well, not concern, I'm just asking a question really about the proposal there for the suitability policy proposal to be amended. So am I right in saying, so if somebody gets a conviction for using a mobile phone or whatever handheld device, remind me what is the courts give you if you're stopped by the police using your phone? It's points, isn't it? I think. So
absolutely.
So
yeah, it's just been stiffened up as well.
Yeah,
substantially.
I'm not. Obviously, yes, it should be deterred and shouldn't be done. But I just think. So you're saying, so if a taxi driver got stopped by the police and was convicted and got, I don't know, 3 points, let's say, for using his phone, so he then can't apply for a taxi license for 5 years after that?
Well, he can apply, but it won't be granted.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But he can apply, just to correct that, he can apply, and we will consider the application, as we always do, on its own merits.
Yeah.
It seems pretty harsh to me, that's all I would say. In my opinion. I mean, it's the same for drink and drugs, which is a lot harsher offence, I would argue.
Well, not if you're knocked off your bike by somebody under the influence of drugs, or you're knocked off your bike by somebody who's texting. I suspect.
Chairman, I'm not saying it's right.
No, I suspect the outcome will be pretty similar.
There's a level of offence. That's what I'm saying, and I just don't think it's on the same level as driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol.
I personally, I do. I think it's a very serious breach of driving standards, and but we beg to differ. Yeah, but the government have just, in fact, introduced new legislation, and they've considerably upped the ante on the use of mobile phones and what have you.
So
I hope on the basis of evidence.
Why aren't the courts stricter if they're only giving out points?
Well, they'll consider it on their merits.
If it's the equivalent to drinking and driving and drugs, which is a ban, why don't they consider that as well? So they obviously don't put it on the same level. That's what I'm saying. The courts don't.
Yeah, you may well be right, but we.
What I'm saying, but we're giving it the same penalty, whereas perhaps it should be 1 year. Which is what. Well,
again, it goes out to consultation, and I'm sure that lots of people will come back, and if there is a feeling that is an issue, then we will address it. I entirely agree. When you start using your phone, you're not drunk and under the influence of drugs, and when you cease to use your mobile handheld device, you're not under the influence of drugs. But the consequences of that, even a short period of time when you do that, can be absolutely catastrophic.
Yes, absolutely, totally agree.
But we'll take a note of that. Have you captured that, Will?
And just one other item.
Sorry, Chairman, yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Just very quickly, just an observation where you were talking about. I'm not sure where it is on the papers, but you were talking about details inside the cab of the license number, etc. I just wondered whether you considered a QR code to put in nowadays. Nice and easy. Passenger who's got his mobile phone, quick scan, and got the details. Just a thought. So when you've got his badge inside or whatever, there's a QR code on it.
We have thought about it, and we're investigating it. There are a number of sort of technical issues with it, but if it's possible to do it, we'll do it. There's the possibility of also putting it on the license plates of vehicles,
yeah,
so that it could be scanned as you passed it.
Yeah.
If it's possible, we'll do it because there are lots of people that like to use that
I think
system.
it's worth looking at.
Yeah,
because you haven't got to write it down. But there it is on the phone.
Yeah, I would like to see a 10-inch diameter disc on the above the glove box where the airbag emerges, so that the front seat passenger has got an opportunity to clock this stuff, and also on the back of both headrests, so that anybody in the rear seats are in a position to unobtrusively, if necessary, if they feel that they're being pressured or under in an unsafe situation, they can quickly and easily capture that sort of stuff. And I think the QR code, Jeff, well done. It's got a lot going for it. It doesn't work too well, I say from personal experience, when one enters licensed premises.
It does if you do it.
I do attempt to do it, and I can from there I derive my not inconsiderable experience.
Yeah. But it works so well. The NHS app, absolutely.
Yeah, it's good.
Works brilliant.
Yeah, no, we got that. So officers have captured that. I'm looking to see. I can't see any other hands up. I'll do a scan across the screen, such as is open to me. I can't see any physical hands up. So if I may, I'm going to take you back to page. Talk amongst yourselves while I go back to it. I had my finger in it, but it's
51.
51. Thank you.
David, I think you've got a question from Tim.
Are you there, Tim? I didn't see you. I apologise. Yes, your hand's just gone up. Oh, that's cheeky. That's a late one. But anyway, please carry on. Are you there, Tim? I can see you.
Yeah,
I can see you. Hello. The floor's yours. I'm sorry, but you're kind of frozen at the moment. Could a couple of you turn your cameras off and try and see if we can reduce bandwidth, please? We can see you clearly, Tim. You're coming into
right,
sound.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. In order to have a very strong policy, and bearing in mind that a lot of the sort of determination is subjective, I've referred to administration of the licensing framework 5.1 on the DFT document. Who is it that scrutinises us as a committee and us as a licensing authority?
Anybody that comes before us and is unhappy.
We have someone who scrutinises.
Yeah, anybody that comes before us and is unhappy with our decision in terms of licensing for alcohol or various other services or taxis has the right of appeal to the magistrates.
So that's the scrutiny.
Indeed, it is.
How about examining ourselves that we're doing it correctly?
That's what we're doing now.
Chair, if I may, we have in the past.
We have no third party.
Sorry, if I may, we've previously been scrutinised by SIAS, which is the Shared Internal Audit Service. So we are subject to scrutiny at times by an independent body that looks at the way we record stuff and the way we're making decisions. So that has happened. Last time I think it was 2016.
It's a very valid point, Tim, and you're touching a nerve
would
with me
suggest that
because
if we
obviously.
had-
Go on.
No,
Go
I
on,
was
Tim.
just going to say, if we advertised that we were under scrutiny of SIAS or whoever, that may add some strength to our policy.
Indeed, it might, but
And
bear in mind
protect
this is the function that we perform is quasi-judicial, and when we sit in as a subcommittee, we are merely a part of the process. And if the aggrieved party is uncomfortable with the way we have conducted the process, or indeed the outcome that we've arrived at, they are perfectly at liberty to go to appeal, which in most cases is to the magistrate's court, and that happens.
Yes, but it's not always the aggrieved party that may suffer from maladministration. Not that I'm suggesting that there is any maladministration with us, but in the eventuality that there was, having a third party scrutiny might strengthen our policy.
I couldn't agree more. And as somebody who chairs scrutiny elsewhere, I'm a big fan of scrutiny. That said, the option is always open to us to go out for external scrutiny. But when it comes to the judgments that we make on the day-to-day basis, which impact on residents and premises, etc., then that is always subject to scrutiny. But yeah, valid point. Oliver, any comments? You'd like to come back on that?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Norma.
Yeah, it was more about the drugs again. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Right, that's fine. All right, those who get convicted of drug offences, yeah, I can understand that. But what about the people that might have a couple of joints a night to get them to sleep? They'll be just as paranoid as anybody else. How are we going to monitor them?
Oliver, would you like to respond to that?
Chairman, sorry, just
Will, yeah, go on.
could members come back on the camera just so that we can see that everyone's present?
Yes, if now that Tim's finished, if you want to come back, but I do reserve the right to ask you to switch off again if we have bandwidth issues. But please, by all means, come back. Thank you, Will. Oliver, do you want to respond to Norma's concern there?
Yes. Unfortunately, we can only work with what we know and what intelligence we have. So if individuals are doing that and it's not reported to us or they don't have a conviction, then unfortunately we wouldn't know. So there is no control over that. So we rely on routine inspections, talking to drivers, being out there on a Friday and Saturday night and seeing the condition of people. But without information being passed to us, it wouldn't be something that we could find out, I'm afraid.
Okay, if I could build on that question, because I think that's something that would certainly interest our residents. It's perfectly reasonable and normal, and in fact not at all unusual, for a great many companies, especially those operating mechanical handling equipment or vehicles or engaged in working with machinery, to do routine SNAP drug and alcohol tests. This is a routine, quite literally a routine part of many people's working lives now. Are we able to do that? Should we consider whether we should be able to do that, so that when you go to a rank on a Friday night, you go to every second car and you ask them to undertake a drug and alcohol test? I hope the technology has moved on. In the past, it used to involve a wee bottle and a private room with a lock on the door. But I suspect it's moved on from there. That obviously wouldn't be necessarily that easy by the roadside in Hertford, but heck, just a thought, Oliver. Any considerations around that?
I think we'd have to seek legal advice before I could go anywhere near answering that question, Chair, which I'm happy to do.
I think we should.
I'm not aware of it happening anywhere in the country, but normally it's just intelligence driven.
But certainly it does happen. It happens in the armed forces. It happens in various other uniformed and badged services, and it happens extensively in industry, commerce and logistics in particular, that this is quite routine now. And it's done on a completely random basis so that people don't feel that they're being picked out of. Norma, your hand's still up. Is that?
Yes, I know it is. I wanted to say the best way was a hair sample. It stays in their blood, in the hair sample for 6 months.
Yes.
Unless
but
the
it's,
taxi drivers are bald, then you can't do anything.
well, yeah, indeed. Most of these narcotics hang around in the system for long enough for them to be detectable for some days, weeks, and months.
Yeah.
You're quite right.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Thank you,
Oliver.
Norma. That was a very valid intervention. Thank you very much. But I would now,
Chairman, just to add a comment to that, it's standard now building sites.
yes, indeed.
Basically, it's a breath test. You go in there, and if you've got alcohol in your system or drugs, then you're not allowed to go to work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, as I say, it's quite routine now. Yeah, it's quite routine.
Yeah.
Okay, but if I could take you back to 51 on agenda item 6, and we have 2 recommendations that the members review and comment on proposals detailed in this report, and I think we've done that quite effectively, and that officers are instructed to carry out an 8-week public consultation regarding the proposed changes. Could you please indicate in the chat that your views on that? You could raise your hand. You got the after raise your hand, you got the yes, no, and maybe. So if you could indicate yes or no, that would be extremely handy. Ken, I've just seen a blue hand there.
Change to green now, Chairman.
Good, excellent. That, whoa, knock me down with a feather. Okay.
Chairman, just as the second recommender is a sort of an instruction to officers, maybe it would be best to have a proposer and a seconder for that.
Yeah, I think that's over egging it, but yeah, okay. I'm happy to propose it from the chair.
Happy to second, Chair.
That's it. Okay, so you've got David Andrews and Rosemary Bolton. Thanks, Will. Thanks for the prompt. Okay, but apart from that, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right, we can move on now. Again, it's the Oliver show. The review of licensing activity, pages 85 to 104. Oliver, are you there?
Yes, I am, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So the second report before you today is to ensure oversight of the areas of regulation that we deal with and to allow the authority to evidence its fulfilling its statutory obligations. As members will appreciate, Q1 and Q2 of 2020 have been unprecedented times. And I'd just like to start by saying how proud I am of the team and the way they've managed to continue to deliver the services under difficult circumstances. If I reference the report directly, in paragraph 3.7 of the report, there are performance indicators for the service, which are the same as last year. All of these have been met despite the situation we've been in, except for the last one, which was due to us having to cease face-to-face training of taxi drivers, which delayed 4 applications. Those 4 drivers did get to attend a training event when we came out of lockdown before we came into second lockdown. Appendix A of the report details proposed work for the future, decision making, project and policy work, and licensing matters dealt with by environmental health. It should be noted that at point 3 of Appendix A, the location of Haddon Brewery premises was incorrectly detailed as Stansted Abbots rather than Little Haddon, and I'd like to thank Councillor Bolton for bringing that to my attention. Appendix A includes details regarding work that's been carried out during the pandemic, including the work towards joint authorisation of licensing authorities officers in relation to taxis, the Travel with Confidence scheme for licensed drivers and operators, which is now being rolled out in every Hertfordshire licensing authority area, and our involvement in the county-wide events coordination group, which supports safety advisory groups and safety advisory teams. In section 6, there's a table for explaining that there is a timetable for the review of the statement of licensing policy under the Licensing Act 2003. Work on that will start imminently. Appendix B contains some comparison figures, so some of it is Q1 and Q2 of 2019 compared to this year, And then there's some year-on-year figures as well for members to view and comment on. Rather than reading through the whole report, I'm happy to take any questions about it and try and clarify any points. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Oliver. Could I ask, because I know this will come up, so perhaps you can guide us through it. Could I ask you to talk to a little bit about the Travel with Confidence scheme? Because I think this is a fantastic initiative, and I want you and your colleagues to be able to take a bit of credit for this. So could you talk us through that a little bit?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, as we were approached by the Community Reassurance Cell team to come up with an idea for helping the taxi trade within Hertfordshire. So it was identified that quite a lot of the trade are high risk, as they are BAME or of a certain age or have underlying medical conditions, and that they wouldn't be able to work because of those reasons. It was also to help the vulnerable passengers. So often there are people that don't have access to their own vehicles, can't use public transport, and they're also quite high risk as well. So they had to rely on these vehicles. So we looked at a scheme that had been introduced by Watford Council, which was Travel with Confidence, and put a proposal together to roll it out across the whole of Hertfordshire, and Public Health agreed to fund it. So it's a sort of a three-stage process for drivers and operators, in that we offer free online training in infection control. So they ask us for a code, they go on, they view the training. If they pass, they can then move to the next stage. They can have as many attempts as they want at it, because the idea is to give them the information, and hopefully it sinks in. So to date, we've had, the target was 100 drivers out of our 330, and we're on 95 at the moment with more than 70 passes. The second stage of the process is, if they've passed the training, they can be accredited under the Travel with Confidence scheme if they carry out a risk assessment, which has formed part of recent DFT guidance, advises drivers that they should do that. So we were ahead of the game there a little bit as well. And they sign an agreement saying they'll maintain the standards. Then we issue them with the Travel with Confidence vehicle stickers, which they can put on the outside of their car. The idea is that passengers would see that and they feel a little bit safer, because they know that they've been trained. They know that there's a standard of cleanliness and infection control in place. Once they've done that, there's also the ability for them to apply for a reimbursement for the cost of a protective screen for their vehicle. So we're offering up to £100, because screens vary from approximately £20 to well over £100, depending on whether it's a temporary or a permanent fixture. So that helps the trade in getting the money back, as lots of people have put that measure in place already. So yeah, there's been lots of interest from outside the county. Local government association have been interested. It's going really well. It should launch in St Albans, Broxbourne and Stevenage fairly soon. I imagine St Albans and North Herts will be shortly afterwards. So it's going county-wide.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And once again, East Herts leads and the others follow. Good piece of work. Thank you very much, Oliver. Now, forgive me, I can see the hands, but I can't recollect which order they appeared in. But Jeff Jones is there, Rosemary is there, but they've both already spoken. So I'm going to go to Ben, because we haven't heard from Ben this evening. Ben, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A very quick question, really. I noticed that on page 94, there's a reference to the Jungle Bar license appeal. And I don't know whether that's already been handled, been heard. But generally, can we as members attend those hearings? And if we can, is there a way of hearing about checking that they're coming up, if you see what I mean?
Well, the answer is it's sub judice at the moment, because there is an appeal in place. It was to be heard next week, but it's been delayed because the barrister for the premises has had to be in a court elsewhere. So that's been delayed for the moment. And as to can you be involved and can you attend, the answer is yes and yes. You can attend at when we consider it in East Herts, and the Magistrates Court where the appeal is held. In this case, we're going to the appeal is coming forward. That is a matter of public record that you can attend a Magistrates Court. So yes, of course. As for keeping you in the loop, that's a little bit more complicated. but I'm happy to speak to officers on your behalf to see how we might facilitate that. But it might be on the basis of you needing to register your interest at some stage. But Oliver, have I got it about right?
Yeah, that's about right, Chairman. Happy to look at how we notify members and keep people in the loop with it. There's been lots of toing and froing with this one in particular, so we would have notified you of dates several times by now. But yeah, I will register your interest in that now, and when we get the next date, I'll let you know, Councillor Pistol.
Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ladies first. I'm going to go Rosemary. Rosemary and then Jeff.
It was actually Jeff that put his hand up first.
Well, I've picked you. Tough.
Ladies first.
Well done. Jeffy's a gentleman.
Thank you first.
Of the old school.
Right. Thank you. Page 91, second paragraph, it says that street trading is moving over to the licensing enforcement team. I'd like to know when it's happening and whether there's actually capacity within the team for that to happen, because I know the team's very busy.
Good point. Oliver.
Thank you, Councillor Bolton. There isn't a set date for it to come across yet. I'm still in discussions with the Service Manager of Environmental Health, as there's some outstanding pieces of work, so we're just working out when the handover should happen as soon as possible. Capacity-wise, we looked at it carefully before we took it on, and I actually asked for it. So yes, we do have the capacity to deliver it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, greatness eventually comes to everybody. Jeff.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you. I think mine has been touched. Did you just say, did I hear that right then? That's news to me, that you're taking over the pavement licensing.
No, pavement licensing they've had since it came out. It's not pavement licensing that Rosemary was talking about.
I beg your pardon.
It was street trading.
I beg your pardon. Right.
Yeah. No, that's fine. It's easy. It's an easy.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'd lost my ModGov. It crashed, but I think I've got it back now. I just had two questions really on, and I think you've touched on it. The COVID funding that came through for taxi drivers in terms of the training, which I think you've touched on, and weren't they going to give them some money towards the screens, divider screens? Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. The bids that we put into public health was to initially allow authorities to train 100 of their drivers, and then there was a set fund for reimbursing for screens, which would be attributed on a first come first served basis. It's unlikely that will cover all of the 100 drivers that are first trained, because you can claim between £100 and £20, so it depends on the size of the claims that go through. But yes, the public health funding is for training drivers and for reimbursement of screens. And as we're nearing sort of the top end of the funding, so we've nearly spent on all of our training, we may go back and bid for more money because they've told us that they're open to that if it's working, which it is.
That's good.
On the back of that, Oliver, could I ask, have we made any provision to support taxi trade in with PPE? I'm thinking largely in terms of masks, but it may be in some cases drivers prefer shields. Is there anything? Have we done anything about that? Is that an area that we might look at?
That was face masks was where public health were initially looking before we were asked for a proposal. But in all honesty, any drivers that are working, if they wanted them, had already purchased them right at the start of lockdown.
Okay.
So it was deemed to be sort of closing the stable door after the horse had bolted. If it was something that came up, then we could go for funding for it. But yeah, if you're accredited under the scheme, you can have some money towards a screen. So it's just a driver for people to be accredited and maintain their standards.
It's a bit, if you like, along the same concept in my mind as needle exchange. There, you see a taxi driver, he might have a mask, he might have made it last 4, 5, 6 days a week before it falls apart. Well, that's clearly not an effective mask. That's all I was thinking. And making not necessarily supplying, but making cheap supplies available. I've got Norma, and then I've got. Say again.
Just finish off what I was going to say on that.
Sorry, Jeff.
In terms of the COVID training, then for the drivers, and I know I've mentioned it to Linda, the leader, because she brought it up. I wondered, is there a possibility? I know it's strictly not licensing, but can that be extended out to community bus drivers that we have within the community? That little bit of training that you provide could be very useful for them. Perhaps you could just bear that in mind if you get further funding. It's something I know that it would be appreciated by community bus drivers, certainly within.
It has been brought up, and the training could easily be adapted along those lines. Whether it would be us that bid for the funding or not is a different matter, but someone could approach public health. We'd happily. I've submitted the documents before, so if someone needed a bit of guidance on how to submit them and how to complete them, I'd happily do that. I think it's a valuable point. We want to increase the knowledge of infection control amongst everyone who's working in transport. Ideally, the vision of Travel with Confidence when it first came out was end to end, so that you'd get in a taxi that would take you to the station, and you'd be safe there. You'd be safe on the train. You'd be safe on the bus at the other end, and if you got another taxi, you'd be safe. So we're trying to. That's the ultimate aim. It's a big picture. Is door-to-door infection control.
Yeah, Jeff. I think it's an excellent idea. Take it up with Oliver offline. I think you should.
Will. And just the other final item I had was on page 55 about pavement licensing, which I've just mentioned earlier. Just wondered how that's going. What checks are in place for those that have paid for their licence, basically. I don't know how we know about it as councillors. Perhaps they should have something in their window. I mean, I did ask the question a while back. I think it was I forget what it was. Anyway, it was a group. I think perhaps it's probably to the exec member. And I think in my ward there was one application for a pavement licence. Well, I know for a fact that even during the winter there must be 20 that are using tables, chairs, etc. outside, which is great. You want to encourage it, but have they got the licence for it? And I'm sure it's the same across the district.
Well, Jeff, that's a good point, but it's covered in the report, and it was very clear that there were very few applications.
Well, that's what I mean. What checks are in place to sort of chase up on it? If they're putting their table and chairs out anyway, because that's the feeling I know of traders, certainly in my patch. Well, they just do it anyway because who's checking it?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
one person has applied for a licence.
At 100 quid a chuck, nobody.
Well, yeah, but
if I could come back on that, point.
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
We've only recently had the power to issue these temporary licenses that run until March of next year. Could be extended, may not be. So we've had very few applications. I perfectly understand what you're saying. We've got maybe 8 applications, and I can name 15 places that do it. HCC have their own legislation for pavement licensing, which has been in place for years. So without wishing to pass the buck, they haven't been chased initially. So to now chase them during a pandemic when they're struggling would seem a bit draconian when they've previously been allowed to do it historically. If it's what members would like us to do, I'll happily have my enforcement team out and contact all those people and ask them to apply for a temporary licence or take their furniture in. But there is a permanent regime through HCC that they could still apply for now. For example, we have an application with us at the moment that HCC have an application for a permanent pavement licence for exactly the same spot. But the new legislation that we've got doesn't say which takes precedent. So we decide ours in 7 days. They have to do a 28-day consultation. So ours is going to be granted or refused before they finish consulting on theirs. And then which takes precedent. So it's an awkward regime, but if members would like us to go out and drop information into the premises to aid them with their compliance with the legislation, we'd happily do that.
It just seems a little bit unfair for those that have applied and got their payment licence, and the guy next door is doing exactly the same, hasn't got his licence. It just seems a bit unfair, and just unfair.
But as you see, it's very few and far between. And the point is, we have to be pragmatic at this stage. This was introduced in order to assist.
Yeah.
But now we're heading into the winter. You know, there aren't going to be many people sitting outside in a duffel coat with 14 scarves and a thick pair of gloves.
Don't you believe it, especially in lockdown, because they can only have takeaways.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm comfortable officers are in a position, but you know, it's down to members again. If you've got a local issue that you think needs developing, then please discuss it with officers. And if it is clearly an issue, a problem, or worse, they'll be supportive in the process. Can I go now to Norma again? Norma, hello.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm just a bit puzzled as to why the street trading is now going to licensing and enforcement rather than environmental health. What happens to the hot food stalls? People from licensing enforcement is going to be wandering around with thermometers, sticking them in samosas, sausages, and goodness knows what, to make sure that the right temperature to sell to the public. And what about the way that they are sold as well? I just don't see the sense in it.
Well, environmental health will still have the responsibility for the safety of the supply of the food and comestibles. But Oliver, can you talk us through that?
Yes, as Chairman just said, people still have to comply with environmental health legislation with regards to food safety. Often, if they're not based in this area, their checks will be done by their home authority as to whether they get their food rating. We administer in licensing the sort of market side of things as well, which is also done under street trading. So the idea was to pull it all together. Environmental health is still a consultee in it, so that if they have concerns about a particular trader, they can object to it, or they can take whatever steps they think is appropriate, because we can attach conditions to licenses if necessary. But it's the administration and enforcement of the actual license rather than the food standards that's coming across to my team. So it's just to try and bring it all into one place and do it all together.
But a valid point, Norma. Thanks for bringing it up.
It seems a bit daft, really. That means you're going to have license wandering around and environmental health.
No, not really, because the licenses are one-off. The environmental health is subject to regular checks as and when they can do it. It's
right.
You know,
okay.
Once you're issued to a license to be working from that location, that's pretty much it. But
Thank you, Chairman.
health standards, one hopes, are being regulated fairly frequently. Ben, I did see a blue hand. It might have been been an old one, but it was definitely there.
It was, but the answer was it was answered. It was about pavement licenses.
Okay.
It was answered in Jeff's answer. Thank you.
No, good. Okay. Well, in that case, I can't see anybody indicating any other interest. I'm scanning across. Nope. Everybody seems to be content. In which case, can I take you back to page 85, where we have again 2 recommendations, not dissimilar to the previous. The members review and comment on the licensing activity from Q1 and 2 of 2020, and review and comment on the proposed work plan for 2020-2021. Will, can we take those together? And Will, would you be comfortable if that was proposed and seconded?
Yeah, that's fine to take on block, Chairman. With this one, because there's not really an instruction, you can just receive whatever you think's best.
Okay. Well, we will do that. Because nobody is indicating any different. So could you just in chat again, just indicate with the green yes or no, or the red no, where you stand on that? It's looking good. Okay, another hand appeared, but that was okay. It's looking unanimous. Yes, it is unanimous. Well, thank you very much for that. I've not been advised of any urgent business, so that concludes that element of it. But could I just invite the committee to join me in noting how difficult it is for the taxi trade, for the license trade, for our hospitality trade, and for those much valued niche businesses that we have in our communities and in our high streets. It's small comfort, but I would like to acknowledge the challenges, the difficulties that they're facing. And everywhere I look, I see people facing those difficulties and challenges with great dignity and spirit and determination to come out the other side of this and to continue to provide us with the services that we, within our local communities, probably now value much more than we have of late. So if you agree with me, can you again give me a yes tick? And in which case I'll ask Will to minute that. That's looking good. Ben's given me a hand. Do you want to comment, Ben? No, it's changed to a tick. That's good. Well, thank you very much for that. In closing, can I thank our officers in no particular order? Oliver always produces an excellent report to us and presents and deals with our queries, questions, and conundrums very, very effectively. Can I thank Will? Will, I think this is your first time assisting us at licensing. Welcome. Thank you. We value your support. And also in the background, we've got Stephen King, who's facilitating all this. And those of us that do a lot of these know what a challenge that can be at times. So with your blessing, I'll just say thanks, Will, thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Oliver. A very good night to you all. I hope our residents appreciate the work we do for them, the questions we ask on their behalf, and keeping our officers on the case. Thank you very much.
Well done to you, David. Well chaired.
Well said, David.
Thank you.